Okay, welcome to my very cheeky paper 2 exam workshop video. So, look, I just want the very best for you all. I really want you to maximise your marks on this exam, and I just want to go through the skills rather than the content of the exam. Okay? Now the skills for this exam stay the same. In every single paper that you would ever do, be it a mock, a PPE, your final exam, the structure is the same. I want you to understand these structures, and I want you to revise how to answer these questions. I'm going to go through a few things which will enable you to be very successful on this exam. So, without further ado, let's have a look. Paper 2 is 1 hour and 45 minutes. It's made of 2 components. Now in this video I'm just going to go through Cold War because I want to break it up. So I won't be looking at Elizabethan skills today, I just want to look at the skills that are required for your Cold War paper. Now if we look at paper 2, nationally it's the paper where people do worse, and that's the same for Bexley Academy. Our students, on average, required an extra 12 marks on this paper in order to be more successful. So I've identified this as my key strategy to improve grades in history at Bexley Academy. Now, moving on. Okay, yeah, as I said, paper 2 is divided into 2 parts. Now question 1 will be an explain the consequences question. Now when you think of consequences you may think, oh, a detention. But actually, consequences, let's really think about what that word means. The vocabulary is very important. Now, I know it says the Cuban Missile Crisis, but your question could be about anything. So I just want you to think about the skills rather than the content of this question. What is a consequence? And who are they for? Well, when we look at this, the mark scheme on how to get 3 to 4 marks, it says that features of the period are analysed to explain a consequence and specific information is included. Okay, so that's how you got to get your 3 to 4 marks. Now, thinking like a historian, when I think of the consequences, I think of these 3 things. WWW. Who? Which leaders were impacted by the consequence? Maybe they weren't, maybe they were. Or were the public more impacted? Was the impact felt in a limited way by the leaders? Who felt the impact more? Where? So, where was the consequence felt? Was it felt in a country, a continent, or across the world? And when? When was the consequence felt? Was it a short-term consequence or was it a long-term consequence? That's what you need to think about. Maybe there are both. It doesn't have to be either or, and this allows you to get greater marks in your essay. Sorry, not your essay, in your 4-mark question. Don't write an essay for this. Yeah, keep this answer nice and honed because you don't write too much and burn yourself out before your next question. Now your next question is a narrative account question. And when you think of narrative, you surely have heard of that word. So let's focus on what that word means, narrative. Well really, if you think about it, it has a beginning, middle and end because it's a story. And a very famous narrator is Morgan Freeman because he's very good at telling a story. So this question is unlike all the others in your exam. It really doesn't want you to analyse, it just wants you to tell the story of what happened. So for me, if you want to answer this question, okay, you need to organise the material into a clear sequence of events. That's how you get your 6 to 8 marks right here. Accurate and relevant information is of course included. So let's look at the skills. How do you answer this? Well, tell me a story to begin with. The main features involved, evaluating this. It's a 3-part answer. So your beginning, middle and end. So to begin with, the Hungarian uprising started in 1956 because of student dissatisfaction in Hungary. There were long-term causes from World War II because Hungary and the Soviet Union were historic enemies. This even went back to World War I, so there was a lot of enmity on both sides. The main features involved. Imre Nagy, the leader, listened to his people and tried to take them to freedom by pulling out of the Warsaw Pact. This, however, was an oversight on his part. Evaluating this, the consequences for Nagy were terrible. He was taken to the Soviet Union and he was executed. Also, a long-term consequence for Hungary, the nation, was that they were not to come out of the Soviet Union's sphere of influence until 1989/1991 with the fall of the Soviet Union. Okay, so you can see how you've got to structure your answer there. Now I've just given a very quick verbal answer off the top of my head of Of course, you could go into a little bit more detail, but remember, it's only an 8-mark question, so again, don't write an essay. Just get your nice 3 paragraphs, 3 points in. Okay, this is just some information about the Hungarian Revolution. A good way to remember a story is a story within a story. Paul Pruk, 15 years old, he was involved in the Hungarian Revolution. He's got an interesting story. After the revolution failed, he was taken and indoctrinated into the Soviet way of life, and he was not punished, he was brainwashed. And he was no longer a revolutionary after that. So that's an interesting little story there. But anyway, moving on. Right, let's not worry about these misconceptions. So I'm focusing on the skills. You'll also have an explain importance question. Okay, so this is going to be 8 marks. Now the example here is of Mikhail Gorbachev. Okay, this is an 8-mark question. Now you're going to get 2 of these, and well, you have the option you have 3 choices, and you pick 2. Okay, and you have to explain the importance of an event or an individual. So, to get the top marks on this, an explanation is given showing analysis of importance. It shows a line of reasoning which is coherent and logically structured. Now when I think of logically structured, I think of connectives. So you use connectives to structure your answer. Accurate and relevant information is included showing good knowledge. So again, how do we structure this? Well, don't brain dump. In your exam, a history teacher is not going to want to see a big fat brain dump where, oh, Mikhail Gorbachev, this is what I know. Splat! They actually want something more organised. They actually want something that's a bit more elegant. So, explain the importance. X was important because. So, Mikhail Gorbachev was important in the ending of the Cold War because of glasnost and perestroika. Glasnost meant openness, and perestroika meant restructuring. Both were more friendly overtures to the United States of America because freedom of speech is a value of democracy, and the restructuring was a value of capitalism. Both were moves which were more friendly towards the United States. Moreover, another factor which made Gorbachev significant was the fact that he relaxed communism in Eastern Europe under the Soviet sphere of influence. This showed the United States that the Soviet Union was not willing to have a hardline communist grip on Eastern Europe, and again, it was a friendly overture to the West. Ultimately, the impact Gorbachev made was one which was very benevolent and very friendly towards capitalism and Western values. He was even voted Time Man of the Year, which is a Western magazine, in recognition of his excellent skills at diplomacy with the USA and the wider West. So as you can see, I've given examples with the question given, but you can see the structure, okay? Again, 1, 2 and 3. This holy trinity is the way to get through your exam. So you have a 4-mark question, an 8-mark question, and 2 other 8-mark questions. They don't want essays. Something which is nicely structured is going to be far better. Please remember these structures. I would take them down on flashcards. I would revise these structures. Do not give up. When you get into your exam, if you see a question which you're a bit stuck on and your knowledge is a bit poor, please remember these structures. The worst you can do is have a go and get some marks, even if it's just 2 or 3 marks. That's better than 0. And if you think on your exam this is going to cumulatively add. So whereas before you may have got a 0 on this exam, if you get across the Cold War part of your exam 3 marks, 3 marks, 3 marks, 3 marks, that's 12 marks. Remember, there's 1 mark between a grade boundary. I don't want you to give up. I want you to revise. I want you to do this for yourself, not for me. Yeah? And I really want you to be successful. So that is that part of the exam. And again, don't forget your connectives. You learn them in English, why not apply them to history? Okay? So these are really good connectives to organise your work. And that's what a lot of the exam grades are given for, structuring your work. Well, if you know how to structure your work in English, why not do that in history? Why write a big fat paragraph? We don't want to see that. We want to see nicely organised answers with sequencing connectives. Firstly, secondly, meanwhile, lastly, previously, earlier, to start with. Okay? These are all very simple connectives, but they just make your work logically flow. Furthermore, moreover, consequently, as a result of this, start sentences with those words and you'll structure your work nicely. Remember, history is either thematical or chronological. So if something's chronological, you have to get things in an order. Okay, now I'm not going to talk about Elizabethan history, that's on my next video, but I really hope that you found that useful in the skills that are needed for your exam.